Hello and welcome to HolisticCircle podcast, Spiritual Conversation. My name is Philipp Kobald. We are reaching out to people who are passionate about spreading light, love, and joy. And today, with a lot of joy and love, Peggy Oberthier. Hello, Peggy.
Hi, Philip. Thanks so much for having me today. I'm excited for our conversation.
Me too. I'm already laughing. I'm already enjoying it. So I expect there will be today little talking and a lot of laughing. But it's good as well, right?
That's exactly what I tell my clients, actually. It shouldn't be so serious. We should all laugh. Yeah.
Okay, so let's practice your wisdom and let's heal the people while listening with laughter. That's something we both can agree on. But let's start this podcast like I always do, with giving you a chance of a small introduction, where you do, your background, whatever you like. Just take a couple of minutes so people get to know you.
Okay, so I am a medical intuitive. I'm based in Melbourne, Australia, but I'm originally Canadian. I have only discovered my spiritual gifts, I guess, in the last year. So this is brand new to me. I was a lifelong atheist up until about, 9 years ago, when I first had a few little inklings that maybe there was something out there. And then I've been on this journey, I guess, since I had a crisis, as a lot of people do in their spiritual awakening. I was working at a juvenile detention center as a teacher, teaching teenagers who are locked up in prison. And there were a number of riots happening all the time. The guards had kind of lost control. So this was back in 2016. And I got caught up in a riot. It was awful. I was really scared. They broke glass all over me. It was not a really fun experience. But I'd been very stressed up to that point. I'd been living on a lot of coffee. I'd had gut issues. I had lots of insomnia. I was in a bit of a physical crisis. I had neck pain, back pain, ankle pain. I'd fractured my tailbone, but my whole body was breaking down for a very good reason. It was trying to show me that I needed to slow down. And then I guess I went on this path of trying to find solutions to pain and suffering and stress. And it led me down a path to a retreat by the time I went to 2019, where I had this sort of first experience of spirituality, thinking there might have been something else out there besides my, dark, staunch atheism, which is what I had. And I had these incredible experiences at these 2 retreats in 2019. And then I just went down this rabbit hole of, you name it, I tried it, Akashic Records readings, psychic readings. I tried everything. I did a lot of meditation, Vedic meditation. And it was in Vedic meditation, when I was meditating, that I would get into these states of like pure bliss, of just, that, oh my God, and this incredible love and this feeling would overwhelm my body. And so I knew that there was something quite big out there. And then through craniosacral therapy, I had a couple of Kundalini awakenings which were really, really intense. And so I guess my intuition kind of opened up a bit, and I was working as a counselor. I'd left the prison, and then I was working as a counselor in a school, and I would start to get like information in my head before the kids said it. And I always thought I was just really good at guessing. Then anyway, fast forward a couple of years, I knew there was something else for me, and I just didn't know what it was. I kept going to all these readings, and they kept saying these really vague things. I had one Akashic Records reading, and she said, "I see you as a hunter." I said, "What?" She said, "Yes, you're a hunter." I mean, that's so vague, but now what I understand of it, it makes sense to me, as I'm hunting in the astral realm, or hunting demons and entities, and that's kind of what I do now. So I jumped ahead a little bit. So after my Akashic Records reading, I just saw this podcast with this guy named Patrice Christofiak, who was a medical intuitive. I knew I had to book a session with him. I booked a session with him. At the 2-hour mark, he said to me, "You're a medical intuitive." I said, "What are you talking about, Patrice?" I mean, this was a really magical 2 hours. I had Jesus. I had all these different beings. I could see things. I could see these crazy colors. He removed, I guess, the blocks. There were clearing of past lives. There were blocks. There were entities stopping me from accessing my crown chakra and my spiritual gifts. So at the end, he just said, look, I've got this medical intuitive director. You're the real deal. I want to put you on my website. Just send me a picture and I'll send you some clients because I've got a waiting list. I just went, whoa, 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 Patrice, what are you talking about? So I said, I just need to mentor a bit. So I mentored with him. He invited me on sessions for a few months. And after the very first session, I went to bed and I was just crying because I knew that this was exactly the work that I'd been searching for a really long time. It was like my soul was just going, yes, this is exactly what I want to do. So that's kind of the story in a nutshell. I believe I'll stop talking. You look a bit shocked.
No, I'm always trying to suppress it, but I've been a businessman for more than 40 years. And while I'm listening to you, a whole mathematics scale was opening up that I think I must go on my knees right now, beg to become your agent and become a millionaire by sending you to every retreat around the world. I have already 3 Bali retreats in my head that like making videos with you promoting what happens if you pay and come to the retreat.
Oh my God.
Because I think everybody in this world who goes to a spiritual retreat hopes to come back like you, being enlightened, open chakras. So I think I should tell your story on all the websites around the world. Like, look what happens when you come to our retreats.
Well, yes. I mean, Patrice, I know we've been trying to get Patrice. So yeah, that's quite funny. I love the way your marketing mind's already. Look, I'm still trying to stay small. I'm just trying to stay humble, Philippe. You're getting I just try to take it one day at a time. And so Patrice and I guess I got him to help. I said to Patrice, look, I know my soul knows what to do, but my brain is going, hang on, I just need some information here. I need some more confidence in what I'm doing. Because a lot of people, when they read bodies, they get, 3D scans, and I was getting it all as a cognitive hit. So it's coming in as a knowing. And I'm like, is that true? Like, is there liver? And he's like, yes, it is. And so I just needed so much reassurance. I guess part of my journey was trying to build my self-confidence in this area, which was a soul lesson for me anyway, feeling good about myself and feeling that what I had to say mattered, and, all of these things that I had brought with me since childhood. So on all these calls, which was really cool, and I got him to do a mentorship. I just said, look, you need to do a mentorship. He said, oh, okay, I'll do it. And it was all channeled. It was very intuitive. There was no structure. There was no lessons. There's about 8 people that applied. We all got, we met weekly, and we would bring in these clients who were just getting these free sessions with one person with like 8 practitioners. And I'd say, oh, I'm getting a pain. So I get these mirrored symptoms in my body. So what happens if I'm sitting with you and you have neck pain, I'll get neck pain. It's just the way it works. And I'll go, I'm getting this neck pain. And then 3 of the people go, I'm getting the same neck. She can't.
I think I'm fine. You should be fine as well. Sitting with me should be okay. Yes. Except if you get some extra kilos, that I'm so sorry for. I apologize. Trousers makes boom. That's me.
No, thankfully you don't get fat transfers from the clients online.
That's safe really handy. With me.
That's good to know. So that really helped. The mentorship really helped, and it built my confidence that I was getting these intuitive knowings, and that I knew that they were real. And then, and then I just started taking clients, and then I eventually.
But I'm serious now. We will follow your path, but it is. I have a lot of conversations, right? And there's some of the things that are really not happening so often. That people say, I did a mentorship and it actually helped. That I went to a retreat and it actually helped. That I did some readings with somebody and it actually helped. This is the one thing that is very rare that I hear at all, that people, and I had the podcast just the other night with a woman who is basically organizer, facilitator of retreats all over the world. That's what she's doing. She's just flying from one exotic place to the other to help big retreat centers, organizing. It's not, I think, marketizing as much as she is a facilitator. And we talked a lot about what makes a good retreat, what you need to bring as a person coming to a retreat. And she said, just be curious and be open. That will be already fine. And then we talked a lot about how people come with different states of their mind to the retreat. And of course, we talked a lot about the facilitator. What is a good place, an inviting place, a health and healing place, and what is an abusive place where people get just sucked out money or emotionally. So it is so amazing, I think, and that's why I needed to put a pin in this conversation, that there is someone who actually is happy with this spiritual, spiritual service industry. And I think...
Yeah, for sure. I agree. And you know what, to be honest, now that I have this gift of discernment where I'm watching YouTubes and, you know, constantly I'm just saying that person's fake, that person's fake, that person's fake. Like, people are not authentic. And then they truly believe that some of them are living for they're going from their heart space, but I'm like, they're not channeling anything. They're just, you know, some of these people have lots of viewers. But, you know, I think for me, it was the very first retreat that it was a guy, Lawrence, who has a massive podcast, who had me on his podcast a couple of months ago. And there was 3 facilitators there. So there was a sound healer, there was a meditation, there's a yoga component. But, you know, I mean, having gone through a lot of therapy, like my mom died when I was 25. She was an alcoholic. It was not a fun childhood in that respect. I had a lot of self-esteem issues, etc. And so I'd been through the journey of a lot of talk therapy already. And I'd had, like, you know, I've got a very strong self-awareness, and I'd read every personal development book, self-help book, you name it, you know. I watched all those episodes of Oprah back in the day, you know. And so I'd been on a very strong journey of, like, you know, how my thinking had contributed to where I was. So I understood the purpose, you know, that how thoughts contribute to your state of mind and your emotional state. And I was just trying to find modalities that helped me with this monkey mind that was going, you know, round and round and round in my head. So I did start off doing EFT tapping, which was a really good tool for helping me just go, I have this emotion, I accept myself anyway. This is where it's in my body. And I think that, you know, I was willing to do the work because, you know, and I think Petra Brezovich, who was one of the facilitators at that retreat, she had all of this incredible skill set of doing past life regression. And she's world renowned at the moment. So she said to me at this retreat, you know, which is, there's no time for BS, you know, she just said to me, you chose your parents. I said, what are you talking about? Why would I choose those parents? It was this really huge lesson for me that my soul was up there choosing these experiences. And it was then when I was just like trying to shed the victimhood that I had always had my whole life. So I think you can't just go to retreat and expect other people to go, you know, make it all better. It is hard bloody work. It is really hard work. There were so many tears. I cried. I had to be vulnerable. I had to be raw, you know, I mean, it was hard work. And they were really, this was not a gentle retreat. This was like, what are you willing to let go of? And they would just, if you weren't telling the truth, they would just go bullshit, you know? So it was, I think you have to find the right facilitators who, they're not just, their hearts were there. Their hearts were in the space of wanting to help. And if your heart is not aligned with that, and you just want to make like, oh, I'm going to make $40,000 from this retreat, it just doesn't work, I think, for people, you know? But also people are always looking externally for how can you fix me, right? What can you take away? And it's like, you have to do the work. You have to, you know, you got to meditate, you got to do your breath work, you have to look after yourself, you have to watch your thinking, you have to be kind, you have to live from your heart space. You can't do an hour of meditation and then go off and then yell at somebody down, you know, and, you know, yell at your kids or get angry at your husband. You have to really just sit in your heart space all the time, you know? I mean, I can still get angry at my husband, but not be nasty. You know what I mean?
Let me tell you two things, if I may. First of all, I'm more than 30 years in this business. So the ones who are fake usually make the most money. I'm just putting it out there.
Yeah.
So that's the number one. And the second thing is I'm teaching more than 30 years of meditation. And I can tell you, you can have a wonderful meditation and it can be absolutely important to go out and shout like crazy. So it is absolutely okay. It is maybe even very important that you go out and shout, and shouting on your husband on every given day seems to be quite normal. Seems to be a sign of a healthy woman.
Well, it's funny.
From my experience.
I hear what you're saying. I do hear what you're saying. So so what you're saying is basically you got to be able to express your feelings. So, but I think that
I'm saying, sorry, just to be clarified 1 second. If you are in the process of clearing up and coming out, for example, it happens with me, not with meditation, but with me, it happens a lot with yoga, for example. Many times I do yoga and it's wonderful and pleasant and it's exactly how it should be. But now and then, especially in the first couple of years, I make a wonderful yoga session and then I go out and I'm full of rage, full of whatever, full of emotions. And I in that moment, I could strangle somebody. And I know it's something's coming out, something's happening. And then, of course, after 20 minutes, it floats away as it should be. But then I usually meet a friend and we have a beer. So after yoga beer, to balance the healthy. So I'm saying it is not a crazy bad sign if you meditate and after this, whatever spiritual work you do, sometimes things come out. That's just for clarification. But
you're absolutely true. Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Because there's that somatic release.
Before we go further, let's go a little bit back and because it's also so classic. I mean, I'm so sorry to say it. Oh, a classic story. You had a horrible thing that happened to you with this huge fear and this huge transition. And that's when awakening was basically speeded up. Most probably the process was there for a long time. As you said, you did therapy, you did so many things, you already did so much groundwork. And then obviously this crazy moment of total fear. So let's talk about a little bit, not about so much what happened. It's not like a journalistic podcast, but what fear creates in the body, opens, translates what you maybe did right after it, to not getting frozen or stuck, to wake things up. Let's talk about your moment of awakening, basically when this whole thing started to grow.
Yeah. Well, that's right. So I had to take time off work. So that was one of the first things that I'd done that I hadn't done for a very long time. I was a very busy mom and I had just slowed down. So I was trying to take some time out for myself to process because, I was shaking and I was in adrenal fatigue. And I'd never done yoga before. And the thought of yoga, because I was a basketball player. I was like sprint, spin classes, boxing, go hard or go home. Like that's how I used to, that's how I used to work out. And I went to this holistic gym and I got all this blood work done. And this guy, he just said to me, you have to just walk. You just have to breathe. You have to do breath work. You just have to walk and you need to do meditation. And it was the most painful thing for me to go through to do yoga. Oh my God. It was yin yoga. He said yin yoga. And I did infrared saunas as well. I was trying to just take my nervous system and just bring it down. And so I think those 3D things of just like slowing down the breath, doing these nurturing things and not hammering my body in the gym and just nurturing my body with food that, and I started all these supplements. And I think that was the key to just try to help me just feel a bit calmer. And I'd never done breath work. I'd never done anything like that. I just started ice baths, and I really responded well to the yin yoga. And I think that was key. And then that's when afterwards, I started to try to meditate. And heart math, I started doing heart math, which is that, you breathe in and breathe out, and you wear this monitor, and you're trying to get your heart rate variability to match it. And it was just going all over the place. So I had this like scientific data that I could follow as I was breathing, and the competitive part of me was like, come on, Peggy, let's do this, to try to get your heart rate down. But you had to bring in feelings of joy, compassion, love into your heart as you're doing that. And I think when you're in that real anger phase, your mind's going like that. So this deliberate softening, this deliberate slowing down really helped me. That's how I got out of the fear. And then I saw a psychic as well. And she was quite interesting. She started doing this sort of like energy healing on me or whatever. But I just felt so relaxed after I left her office. And she was telling me that things were going to be okay. When you're in that crisis, you want to have somebody go, it's going to be fine. So I guess that helped me as well.
It's interesting, not the answer to my question, but it is an interesting thing people to hear, because you beautifully described, textbook, all these specific stages that are happening. First of all, you always said fighting adrenaline with more adrenaline. So whenever you felt exhausted, you fight it with even harder training and even harder stuff. Yeah. So that's one thing, because people fight alcohol with alcohol or fight drugs with this. So that's what we do. When we're in a negative spiral, we're trying to spiral faster to heal the spiral. So that's a fascinating thing that you just described. So beautiful. And those moments, but there must have been, and that is what I'm trying to see if we can find it, because there's always a very specific moment. But interestingly, a lot of people, by brushing teeth in the morning and looking in the mirror, sometimes also watching a family friend in the eye, there is always then that moment when we say, this cannot go on any longer. I have to change direction. There is this moment of awakening. It's sometimes like a big bang, like in a movie. Sometimes it happens slower, as you said, maybe in conversations. But there is this very precise moment where we know and be able to see it, and to be able to accept it is always the highlight of my podcast.
Yeah, well, what's really, I think for me, it was a brutal. So what happened was, when I got caught up in the riot, I made the mistake of sending an email to my boss saying, the place is not safe. You can't actually, because we were a school within this prison, and the guards had lost control because of a bunch of policies that they weren't allowed to restrain the boys anymore. So, you can't, if kids start fighting and you can't touch them, how do you stop things happening? So I sent this email to my boss and I said, I don't feel safe and the place is going to implode. Well, my clairvoyance was kicked in, because 48 hours later, the whole place imploded. They destroyed every single window, every single building. But he then said to me that he sent me an email and he said, you're not allowed to come back to work until you get a mental health check. And so he flipped it back on me because he thought that I had a lawsuit about him. I'm not providing a safe workspace. So that was my crisis point, where I was so angry that I'd been this leader of this, I was holding space for so many of these young employees. I was the one that never cried. I looked after. I mean, there was horrific exposure to lots of different incidences at the prison. And I was just this steadfast, resilient, smart, blah, 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 and I was like, and then I was like, how dare you think that I need to, so it was the Department of Education. It was all bureaucracy. And I sat in that office with that lady and she was going, so I said, I am ready to go back to work. And she said, but I was just, I knew that I actually didn't want to go back to work. So once I decided, I walked out of that psychiatrist's office and she said, yeah, you're fine to go back to work. And I was just like, actually don't want to. But I had to get that was the crisis point for me that, and now I look back, I go, yeah, I probably should not have gone back to work. He was actually right, because I was just I was so shaken from it. But I think that was the point where I was in this really bad low. like I hadn't slept, like I didn't sleep for like almost 2 weeks. I had the worst insomnia, and I just said that this has to stop. I can't go on like this.
This was before the incident, very short before the incident.
No,
Or
it
after?
was like no. So there was a riot, and then there was a massive riot. So this was right after the incident. So right after the incident, So I just said to my boss, like, so I got caught up in this riot, and I got home at night. My husband was just like, "That's ridiculous," because I had to think, it was a long story. I won't bore your listeners with it, but I guess
No,
to have.
you don't bore the listeners, because this is what this is all about. This podcast.
Oh, I see.
This
Okay.
podcast,
Yeah.
just because it is, we all every day getting the signs. We all of us.
Yeah.
We're constantly getting the right signs all the way. It's like the magic hand of God, shouting at us, "Don't go left, don't go left," and we're like, "Oh, look at there! There's a nice building." Boom, we
Yeah.
get hit. It's
Yeah.
constantly we're
Yeah.
getting the signs, and we are able, not able, and something crazy must happen usually, that we finally are able to listen and be on the right path. So that's why this is the highlight of the podcast, so to say, when you
Yeah.
talk about these moments of not listening, already having the voice, not accepting the voice, and then finally being hit in the face, literally.
Yeah.
So you could follow the voice. So that's that's a spiritual podcast.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So I guess, when everything was stripped back, like because who am I, right? So I was a super mom. I'd get up at 5, go to the gym. I'd put a crock pot on for the kids. I would do this and that. Like I'd get to work. I would manage everybody else's issues. I was just trying to be perfect, trying to be the best, teacher, the most, with just resilient, everything's fine. But then, on a Friday night, I would have a lot of, 4 pints of beer. You know what I mean? Like there was something wrong, right? Go the end of the week. That's when you're drinking like that to try to forget the stress of the week, right? But I was, I was on this, like, this cycle, and it was I did that for 4 years until the end of this, until the incident. And, something had to give, because my body kept telling me all along there was something wrong. I'd get this pain. I had steroid injections in my toe. Then I would get a steroid injection in my ankle. Then I would get a steroid injection in my knee. And I thought, oh, these were just injuries from playing basketball. But they were all signs: slow down, stop, just take some days off, just stop doing something. And then even when I fractured my tailbone, I slipped down the stairs and I just went to work. I couldn't even sit on a chair, but I went to work anyway, right? So, it was like, what kind of a person doesn't slow down? So I think the universe was giving me a lot of signs that I just needed to slow down, and I had to look after myself, because I got bronchitis. I was on steroids. I would just get sick, and no, not for me. 2 days off, back at work,
And now we can beautifully jump forward to right now and today, because now we're in the business of interpreting signs for people.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly what I do. Yeah.
And that's exactly what you do, because if it's a spiritual psychic health, then that's exactly what you do. You're looking at this relation between past life, energetic realities, and body realities, and all of it. And these are all signs and information which you then interpret, because they manifest in the body, they manifest in the brain. And basically you're trying to make sense of all of those meta points around the person. And it's good to have a podcast like this, so people know that you talk from experience.
Yeah, for sure.
So tell us a little bit
about what I do.
No, go. No, just tell us a little bit about.
Okay, about what I do. Okay, so as a medical intuitive, I guess lots of different definitions of what a medical intuitive does. People just can scan a body, and then they get information, and then that person then takes that information to their doctors or whatever. I mean, medical disclaimer: we can't diagnose or prescribe or anything like that. But what I do is I'm able to, tune into the body, and I get these mirrored symptoms of what's going on for you, but I get energetic information. And I get information about whether it is related to a past life. Like, it's a crazy thing to think about past lives and how they affect our current health. But there's some monks that say that up to 80% of our illnesses are related to past life. So it's a pretty crazy thing. But what I see, a lot of my clients that end up with me, a lot of their past lives are related to some of these fears and limiting beliefs that they have in their head that have held them back from stepping into doing something. And sometimes it's an irrational fear. I had one of my clients say, I know I just can't fly with my sister, and I don't know why. Well, I want to go on holidays with her, but we can't be in the same plane together. And straight away I was like, this is past life related. We've got to clear that. So any of those irrational fears, limiting beliefs, I mean, a lot of those obviously have to do with your childhood, but some of them that are still holding people back. So that's something that I do if it is able to be cleared. So I do that. And then there's, we have these, it's a hard thing to discuss. Some people are not really understanding this, but we have entities that can attach on parts of our body. And, they're hitchhikers. They come in and they can be removed as well. They can wreak havoc in your stomach. They can your neck, your back, your knee, all over the place. So I can remove those. And then thirdly, what I get is go ahead.
Sorry, because it's one of the hottest topics these days in my podcast.
Oh, okay.
You remove them, or you ask a being of light to remove them for you?
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, good question. Yeah, I must clarify. Yes. I hold the space. And I call in a massive team to bring in. I guess the analogy I like to use is somebody is caught in a current. I'm in the still bit. I throw like a lifeline I forgot about the word, and I just pull them in. I pull them into the still point. And to be honest, how transmutation works, I'm not really 100% certain. I'm holding a frequency that is at a high energetic level, and I do call in a massive team. It takes me a couple of hours to prepare for a session. I call in galactic team, angels, ascended masters, whoever, and I just set the intention to help release it. And I guess it's kind of like, for me, it's kind of like the movie The Green Mile. Like, I will actually throw up and I shake and I burp and I do all these movements that look a little bit full on for the client. And yeah, I'm holding space. I'm holding a frequency, and the client releases it. And the client has to want to release it. The client has to want to release it.
Live on the podcast, and I get $1 million viewers.
We could, if you want to. I'm burping.
Not now. Interesting, maybe. Sorry to break you. The 2 podcasts I made recently. One is with an exorcist who is a total expert on exactly this. He's been doing this for years and years, centuries now, doing this. And he talks very precisely and very technically about how this technically works on the higher realm and the beings. And the other one is with a person who's a high spirit who says, no, this is all just a subconscious way to help the practitioner. You as a human can do it all by yourself. You just have to believe in yourself. You don't need to call any galactic teams or anything. You can do it, but you really need to build up a huge self-confidence to talk with such a force to these entities. So that's why it's such a hot subject, because there are those who say, no way, Jose, a human on its own can get rid of it without the help of light beings. And the other ones who said, if you just build enough self-confidence, you can confront them and tell them to bugger off. So that's why it's such a big theme in my podcast recently.
I think, my opinion is that I think there are some entities that do feed on fear, and that once you're sitting in your heart space and you don't fear them anymore, and you can just tell them to go, then they do. But there are some attachments, in my opinion. No, you need help. That's my opinion.
Exactly.
So
That's why this will be a continuous conversation on this podcast,
yeah,
because this is
yeah,
for me, a fascinating element of the spiritual things
yeah.
that how we see this. But before we come to the last points of your therapy, I think this is a good moment. You said from the beginning a couple of times, I used to be a atheist. You didn't even say agnostic, which I would have more thought from your background that you rather become an agnostic than an atheist, but you specifically said atheist, which
Yeah,
I find is
yeah.
interesting, because for me, an atheist is a full-blown believer. It's yeah, they are worse than going every weekend to every Sunday to the church. I mean, they are worse. I mean, and there is no true believer on planet Earth than an atheist, right?
Yeah,
Because to
that's
believe
true.
that
Yeah,
something
you're
don't exist, it must exist so you can believe it not to exist. Otherwise, it would be not logic.
you have a point. You have a point. Yeah.
So
So
you
how did I
became
go from
from a true
atheist to
believer, from a very strong believer to a mild believer. But so, but what do you actually believe in now? Would be the question.
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I believe that we are all one unity consciousness. I believe that there is a realm of spirits, guides, divine beings, angels, ascended masters. We don't die. We just we're just a avatar. Our souls choose an avatar for the Earth game, and we're always alive. So we never die. And I believe that, yeah, that we are constantly surrounded by many different beautiful beings, including star families, galactic families. Yeah, that's what I guess I believe in. I don't know if I made a very eloquent explanation of that, but that's, I'm fully connected all the time, and we are all connected. And so, yeah, which is totally different, because when as a non-believer, or believing of a non-believer, whatever how you describe it, I just thought we were dead. That's it. We were just a physical body. And it was a very materialist view of the world, just we're a physical body, we die, and that was it. So, and it was only one of my friends who told me about his near-death experience that just sparked me questioning that truth of, nothing happens after you die. And that was actually a couple of months before the riot. And then another friend, her husband, started channeling. And this guy was like PhD in microbiology. He's like very, very straight, not like, a very reluctant channeler. But his mom died and he had this spiritual experience. So as my friend was telling me about it, the hair on my arm just stood for about 2 hours going, what? What are you talking about? And so that for me, that was proof, like from real people. And so that was all I needed. And then I went down this path of like listening to people who were, going down the quantum physics path that sort of helped me from a scientific mind way to help me understand energy. And now
There are a couple of interesting. That is, first of all, the moment in the podcast where I always say, bad things happen to good people. Your friend I'm talking about, being such a scientist, being such a and then all of a sudden he must deal with channeling. This probably freaked him out.
Oh yes,
obviously bad things happen to good people. We're getting this a lot. I feel sorry for the guy. But I think, again, you bought something very important now that is going to be, that is my personal opinion, the next 40, 50, 60 years on planet Earth. That will be a major discussion that, as you said, as an atheist, you just thought you're dead and that's it. Which means, yeah, some people develop a huge moral accountability based on their analysis. It's all on me. I have to either fix it or I have to destroy it. But this is the rare case. The big case around the world is, well, I'm dead and that's it. Relates to automatically saying, well, who cares? I'm dead, I'm gone. So I'm not responsible. And that not feeling responsible for the earth, the society, and all of this. This leads to this kind of this kind of behavior that we see on the planet. And oops, sorry, I just had a quick thing with the computer. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
Well,
Okay.
just have to. My phone is on vibration. I apologize. This is the first time this ever happened. Now there we go. The day would come eventually. So this is the interesting moment when we start to feel these things, when we start to understand that connection, when we start to see the light. Once we step into the light, a huge burden of responsibility for our fellow man, for the animals, for the nature, for all around us. Once we are part of the one and we feel the part of the one, a moral element starts to rise. And I somehow believe that this is going to be the next 40, 50 years where we will see a transformation from a not responsible individual to, again, a connected individual. How would you see your personal transition? Talk a little bit. Did it shift your idea towards your family, to your children, to your surrounding, to nature, from atheist to a person that feels connected? Have you changed?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. There's no, like, I feel, energetically I'm connected. I can feel the connection so much stronger now. I mean, even so, and even, water, even in the ground. And when I put my bare feet on the ground, I feel this, like, I can feel energy, I can call on Mother Gaia and her energy. I mean, that's crazy. I never would have thought of that 40 years ago. And even, just the connection to distance healing, even on the, just to consider that I'm doing all of my work via Zoom. And I can sit and I can say, oh, my feet are tingling. And the person across the world says, oh, my feet are tingling as well. It's so incredible. And when you share that energy, I mean, I get on the calls with some of my colleagues, and we just, they're in Europe and I'm in Australia, and we can feel high just from being on a call. I mean, that's this beautiful universal energy, this universal consciousness that we just all share. And it's beautiful, yeah. And with my children, I can tune in now to them. Really, I can really tune in, and I get these intuitive hits now. Of course, I've got teenage daughters. They're not really keen on hearing what mom has to say. But,
Next
the
question.
way... Oh, how do they... Okay, go ahead. What's your next question?
Exactly that, to see how this now with the children, how you have a different connection or a different feel, how it changed your perspective as a mom, seeing them as being a part, and how did they react on it? How did your children, your husband react on your new gift? This would be my next two questions.
Oh, that's a very good question. My husband's very, right-brained, and he's just a Aussie bloke, as they call it in Australia. He's from the country, grew up in a farm. He's a very conservative man, but he understands, and he's very open, and he's very supportive. And he was also probably more agnostic as well, but he is now... I've been drip feeding him some of this information, and he's now on board, and he does understand it's real. So my youngest daughter's always been very sensitive energetically. She saw auras and she feels things. And the world has changed for me significantly now, because now I look back and I go, oh, I think she was picking up on the energies of this campus that she was on when she was in year 9. So 3 years ago. And it was an old asylum. It was an old insane asylum, and they made these classrooms in there, and she hated going there. And she just said, I can't go there. And I said, you know what? You probably were seeing entities. And she said, yes, Mom, everybody was possessed. So I have a much greater understanding of what my daughters are like now. Are they fully on board with all my gifts? It's taken a little while, but now they believe me and they understand. And they both have gifts in their own respect, and so they're tuned in. But it's still, they, as a parent, they're young adults now. Well, 17 and 19, they They want to make their own decisions. They want to do their own things. And one of the things that shifted for me spiritually is now when I know that they're going through pain or they're suffering or they have a breakup, I know that their soul chose that experience. And as a mom, I can sit in the trust and surrender of the process of the universe, even though it feels painful to watch a child suffer in any way. We don't have to take that pain away from them. We just have to hold and acknowledge the pain. And we can trust that the universe has a plan, that this is all divinely orchestrated for them for some soul learning. And that is one of the key takeaways. It's a big difference as a parent, because you have always had this fear, oh my God, what if happens this time? What if my child has this? What if this happens? Now I can go, it's okay. It's okay. Because it's all part of their soul evolution. It's all part of, it's what we signed up for, this duality. So that's definitely shifted for me.
If I'm permitted to say without being intrusive, it just, I first of all, I like conservative. There's nothing wrong with it. And I think that your husband grown up on the farm and had the hand in the ground, you have to be spiritual, if you know it or not. If you grow, if you work with nature, it's a different kind of conservative. And so I've never known a person who grows anything who doesn't have always hardship. It's a hard life on the farm or in the nature. It's hard to deal with these things, but there's always a deeper respect that usually translates into conservative, but it's a respect for life. And so I never underestimate people who have any kind of farming background, never ever, because there is a certain wisdom in growing food that so many of us have lost.
I couldn't agree more.
All right.
I could not agree more.
So I'm always speaking up for farmers. All right. So basically now we've seen such a beautiful journey, and I broke you up before earlier when you wanted to a little bit more tell about your work. This is now basically where we're coming to the end so people understand. So let us give the last 15 minutes. You said already, people who have pain, questions, they call you for scanning, they call you for part of the healing. If they're entities, you will tell them, you will help them. I'm always curious, like, how many sessions do you plan? Is this something that's been done one time and you are free and happy? Or is there work to be done? Are you facilitating the work? Are you just a person who says, do the work and then come back? Or are you really guiding people over weeks and months? So if you want to spend the last 10 minutes to a little bit talk about these services so people understand who should call you, how to call you, that kind of understanding, what is it good for?
Thank you. So I don't do packages or anything like that, because the people that have seemed to have booked with me have been on a spiritual journey for a while. They have a lot of self-awareness. I've got a lot of clients that work in the healing practice, and they know they have blocks. They feel and sense energies. A lot of people who are like super empathic and they take all the energy on. And so I've done a lot of single sessions with those clients. I could only do one session a day. It is very physically draining work for me. Yeah, I mean, I move a lot of energy in the 90 minutes that I do. So I was doing more than that. I was doing about 8 a week, and now I've had to cut it back to 5 because I can do them, but I can't do anything else. I can't cook dinner. I can't, I just have to just lay down, and like it's very, very intense work. This is like Reiki on steroids, this is like 100 sessions of Reiki is one session. Like I shouldn't say it like that, because there's different Reiki practitioners out there, but this is like this is what I've been explained. This is how it's been explained to me of what I'm doing in a session. So, I mean, the one thing that I am able to do is when I'm working with a client, I get an intuitive hit about a trauma or something that could be stuck in an emotion, normally that's stuck in the body. So it just comes in and it'll say like 4 years old, there's anger stuck in your neck from when you were 4. And I can help release that trauma from that incident. And, and oftentimes these are really deeply buried emotions from abuse and all sorts of things. And I use the light language, and I try to teach my clients to develop their own light language so then they have a tool to release their emotions. So we don't want to go in the story like, oh, my father abused me or whatever it is. I don't want them to start thinking about it again. And so it goes in the hippocampus. I want them to get out of the story and try to release the energy block. So for me, when I'm doing that deep emotional release, that is, I find that it's a huge release for me personally. Like I'm burping, I'm shifting, like there's this block that's been there for a long time. It feels like much more visceral than the entity and, some of the past lives. It's a really deep emotional stuff. But then all of a sudden the pain goes out of their neck, So that's the thing, or their knee is better, or this is the thing. So I've been given this gift of, and it just goes through, like I'll say 8 years old. Okay, you're 12 years old and it's blame or it's shame. Oh yeah, that's when my dad did this to me and blah, Or sometimes the client just goes, yep, I know. And I don't really want to hear the whole explanation because we just want to get rid of it. So that's what I do. And in terms of the work with clients, so it takes a while to integrate afterwards. And you really have to, you have to do your own work in between. And I do a lot of coaching, but I do mostly transmutation for the most of the part of it, right? And then they go off and do their own practices. It might be self-care practices, it might be self-forgiveness. It might be forgiveness of others. It might be breath work, change in diet, exercise, self-care, all those things. And then they will come back. I get repeat clients, usually monthly. Monthly is probably a good way to do it. So I get people that rebook once a month. I'm not cheap. And so because I only do one session a day, and I do move a lot of energy in one session. So that's how I've set it up. But I do offer groups once a month.
I would like to ask you a question. Do you think that when you've been doing this like 4 or 5 years in a row, that you will find ways so it's less straining on yourself? Do you think with growing confidence, growing experience, that you will build a structure that is more safe on yourself?
Yeah. It's more of a nervous system upgrade is what I'm just constantly balancing, because, I went through this. Go ahead.
Because you know that there are huge schools who would now go crazy listening to you. And I'm sure that there are a couple of therapists now out there taking their head and putting against the wall, because there's a lot of schools who would say never, ever let these things manifest into your own body. There's huge.
Oh no, they don't. Yeah, they don't come in my body. I don't. I have a very strict spiritual hygiene practice, but part of being in full integrity when I'm working in my heart space with a client is that I have to be in 100% energy, and you do need rest and recovery. And because I'm using my lymphatic system to help clear things, I need to drink a lot of water. I have to rest. I have to do walking. I have to do yoga. I've got to do weights. I've got to do all this stuff. But at the moment, because I've only just started working full time in this in January, probably December, is my nervous system is going to be upgrading, but it's slow. But even then, my mentor, he only took one client a day for months and months, very long time. And I think 3 hours a day is maximum that I could possibly do. At the moment, I used to do 2 clients for 1 hour each, but it would go over. And now I'm just doing 1 client a 90 minutes, because that I have to tune in 3 to 4 hours before. Like, it is a full-on deal. Like, it's a big day. And I'm confident that I will have nervous system upgrades so that it's not going to be, I might be able to add in more as I go. But see, last year I had this huge expansion in August and started channeling. And then I ended up getting pneumonia, which is part of the, there's this shedding that can happen when you expand your heart chakra and your throat chakra. But I didn't slow down enough, right? So I got sick, but I should have just rested, and I didn't. And then I just kept pushing it. And then the universe is like, the universe is like, bam, you need to rest for 2 weeks, do nothing. And that's what my nervous system needed to help create that space to bring in the frequencies of the channeling.
Well,
So,
it will be interesting to watch in a year or two how this will progress and how you will deal with it. I think it's very interesting, the technique that you have chosen, that you use your lymphatic and nervous system to almost like an exorcist movie, the old one,
yeah.
when then people throw up and let all of these bad spirits or this accumulated negative energy physically out. It's and a lot of old ancient exorcist practices based on working with the clients, but usually the priests don't throw up. Usually they let the client throw up.
Well, there's some clients do that too. Yeah. But
so
I don't always throw up. So
happens.
it's a, yeah.
I get you.
Yeah.
I understand. I was just trying to put the picture. I understand how it works, but basically this is one of the old ways to doing it, and it works well for people when they see the manifestation. It helps the brain to understand what just happened on the spiritual level. And most probably it's more honest, as you were referring to fakers. Most probably it's much more honest if one sees the physical expression of a mental process.
Yeah.
I think we've covered a lot today.
I was just going to say, and that's what the guides have said to Patrice, who was my mentor. The guys that, his guides said, they want, the reason you're burping, shaking, and moving is because it's important for the client to see that, for them to understand that there's something happening, So I guess you're absolutely right. That's exactly what happens. So, I mean, I would like not to do all of that, and I'm waiting for the upgrades for it to not be so taxing on the body, but I'm sure it's going to come.
For sure. 100%, because you can't continue this for long. This is impossible. It is not sustainable. I think we covered a lot of ground. I think that people got to know you, but also there's a lot of value and learning in this conversation. So I feel we had a good podcast. I hope you feel the same. And I'm very thankful, and I would love to have you back in a year or so when all of this has become much more settled and much more developed, and see how you're seeing all of these progresses. I would be very interested to follow up. Thank you so much from my side, and thank you for a really interesting and open conversation.
Oh, it's been an absolute pleasure, Philip. I've really enjoyed talking to you today. Thank you so much, and I'd love to come back.